Okay. Andy?
Here.
Sally?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
I don't see you. Rogelio?
Hi.
And Jamie's here.
Good job. Jamie will hold up her flag. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance,
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
Which
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
By the end of these Zooms, we'll get that down. We'll figure it out.
Thank you for having a flag. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting of May 27th?
I
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And moving on to C, the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Move
moved.
to approve. Second.
Any questions? Roll call, Jamie.
Roll call. Rogelio?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Sally?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
And I'm Mike.
Thank you. We'll go on to D, public interest reports, the superintendent's report. Diana.
Thank you, Sally. For my superintendent's report tonight, I've invited our CHS students, Laura, Isa, Jackie, and Joanna, who organized the Black Lives Matter rally in Carpinteria this Saturday. We're really proud of their leadership, and I look forward to the opportunity for all of us to listen to them tonight. So I'd like to turn it over now to Jackie.
Okay, so I think that Laura is actually gonna begin our presentation.
Okay.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Laura.
Okay. So first off, I want to start off with a letter that I wrote. So I've been reflecting on racial injustices and how it is present and prevalent in our community and within the district. As a student of color growing up in this district, many of us in the community have experienced the lack of cultural comprehension being used to educate us, as well as the racial injustices in our school system. Students of color are mistreated due to the fact that we are a minority, though we are a majority on campus. Growing up in this community, I've experienced firsthand the lack in our district of comprehensive, diverse education, and it seems like there are few leaders addressing this concern. Students at our school do not know the importance of educating ourselves on issues of cultural appropriation, racial disparities, racism, bias, etc. And a majority of our parents are uneducated on these as well. However, our school is an integral part of our community. It is where we come to learn, and the curriculum and administrators should be proactive and ensure these issues are spoken about and taught from a compassionate, diverse, and educated perspective. This knowledge cannot be simply one-sided white male history, but our district should include diverse literature, courses, and curriculum that resonates with all the students. There should be an opportunity for people of color to dig deeper into their culture and to learn from the experience of people who look like them and other people around them. Educators on campus have been tirelessly striving to make this a reality in our lives by weaving bits and pieces of this in our curriculum. Bits and pieces are not enough. We sense their frustration when again and again they are brought down by administrators who ignore their requests. We cannot learn simply by textbooks, but should be educating and preparing students for life. I've been lucky enough to be educated outside of school about cultural appropriation and the system's mistreatment and neglect of people of color, especially the Black community. However, never have I been taught this in the classroom. Students on campus who wear do-rags as a joke, throw around racial slurs, and use attire or objects from different cultures for their appearance should not be accepted. When addressing this to administration, we should not let it go unaddressed or have no consequences under the reasoning of freedom of speech. So who is to blame in this situation? The students for being uneducated, or a school system that prevents us from learning about these topics? Lastly, as a Latinx students, there is a lack of resources for our parents of color. It is easy to say that they receive all the parent square information, but not every parent receives those messages. When we are told by administrators that changes in our master schedules are being done, and parents of the community decided on this, I wonder what parents were asked, because my parents never were, and neither were my Latinx classmates' parents. Some may claim our school is incredibly diverse, but we are far from it. Yes, we have students of color, and yes, we have a large demographic of Latinx students. However, that in itself does not justify diversity. You, however, are in the position of power so that students are receiving the education that will benefit them in our future. Our staff, faculty, and administrators by no means should side with or try to justify racial profanity, and students should be held accountable for these actions. Please use this awakening of the Black Lives Matter movement to educate yourselves, and remember you were elected to represent all of your students. As a CARPI student, I am grateful for the opportunities I've received this far. This is a learning experience for all, and I ask that you keep this in your discussions. A week ago today, I wrote this letter and I sent it out. This was the day after the murder of George Floyd. I had taken the day to reflect and put my thoughts in this letter. I decided to keep this letter anonymous because I wanted all of you to read it, free of bias about the student you may know me as. As a first-generation student, my opportunities have not always been given to me. I've had to be persistent with my education, ask questions, and seek out the answers. I've worked hard. And it is why I'm here to speak to you today about the lack of cultural sensitivity in our schools, and perhaps encourage you all to consider these topics, as I am not the only student who will benefit from these actions. As a student of color, I often am not able to resonate with the figures taught about in the classroom. It was often deceiving not to be able to visualize myself achieving recognition. In fact, many people in similar situations are never even educated on their own culture. Though when I began my journey at Girls Inc. of Carpinteria, AVID, and the Club CADE, which I will speak about later, I quickly was able to learn about my own culture and the cultures of others. However, we are here today to let you know we believe topics such as culture and justice, etc., are vital within the classroom beginning at the elementary level. So I hope that you will consider these topics that you will speak in our presentation, that we speak about in our presentation, and keep them in your discussions. I ask you please not to excuse that our district is too small. Rather, look at this and take this as an advantage. This is an important topic that I believe will benefit our district greatly for years to come. Please note that this is not a trend for us. This is not a bandwagon that we are jumping on. We are taking advantage of this moment to change in education. Our experience as members of Girls Inc., AVID, and CADE since middle school has prepared us for this moment. Now is the time for us to take action and be the change we want to see in the world. We are so grateful for the experience and knowledge we have gained in our AVID electives, participation in CADE and Girls Inc., that we want all CUSD students to reap the benefits to some degree. Hopefully, this is a first step. So, as I mentioned earlier, CADE is a club we have on campus. We started it, I've been a part of it since 8th grade. Ms. Nunez is the advisor, and when she left the middle school, she brought it with her to the high school. So our purpose, our name stands for Celebrating Adversity, Diversity, and Education. And our purpose is to support and promote the intellectual, cultural, artistic, and academic advances of all students through active participation in school and community events. So at the middle school level, we did fundraisers for Dia de los Muertos and tamal sales, and with that money that we raised at the school, we were able to go on a college tour to San Francisco and tour Berkeley, Stanford, and San Jose State. And then we also had several cultural celebrations, which allowed us to gather and listen to music and appreciate a culture. So what we're asking you today is to consider establishing CADE-like programs on all campuses. So some of the things that we've done are decorating display cases on school, for example, a simple one. we print out Wikipedia bios of different Hispanics, and we put them out in September and for Hispanic Heritage Month. And then this past March, we did women's history. So we printed out bios and pictures of women in history, and we put them up around campus. And so we're also asking you, we need your support hosting cultural events. For example, we were approved to do a Cinco de Mayo event, but we were not at school during Cinco de Mayo. So some of the things that we do are DJ celebrations, where a DJ comes and plays different genres of music, and it brings us together and helps us appreciate this music of other cultures.
One of the things that we want to advocate for, especially, is a zero tolerance for racism, but not only focus on disciplinary actions, but really accentuate and educate students as to why what they're saying or what they're doing isn't right, the history behind it, like what oppression comes with that and what others have gone through, and to really let them know why it's wrong and not just like it's wrong. And this should be taught at a younger age, starting at a young age, because when we're younger, we're obviously sponges, and it's really important to learn, especially with California being such a diverse state, to respect all cultures.
But we especially wanted to bring to your attention the Assembly Bill 331, which would result in the completion of an ethnic studies course as a graduation requirement. But this should also start being implemented in schools K through 12, because we believe it would be more effective for our school system to learn to understand and empathize with those that may be different than us. And reasons why we believe this bill is especially important and necessary is that it increases a great inclusivity among students in different cultures, meaning students would not have to feel uncomfortable talking about different cultures or topics, especially when it comes to racial inequality. The school system we have grown up in has taught us to be uncomfortable because we simply do not know about other backgrounds. And this bill would also give different perspectives. For example, in our history classes, the textbooks are written by older white males. It is harder for students to resonate with the history if it's not our own, and it's only one-sided as well as whitewashed. An ethnic studies course would be especially relevant for what is happening in the world today. The reason why people are so ignorant is because they are not in the know. A course like this would broaden our horizons and standpoints. Lastly, this could also bring attention to racial slurs and actions that are made on campus. Students and staff could say a slur and not get held accountable because others do not call them out on it. It is also because the ones saying and doing these actions themselves are not educated on the topic itself and do not understand why it's harmful. So while looking into research about the bill, we found that once it was going into effect, it would be in a couple of years. But that's not an excuse for why we can't start now. We must be leaders. We must lead by example and not be the followers. So, us mentioning the ethnics course bill also leads us to our next point. We no longer have the capability to offer any social science or history electives at our school. This is due, as you know, one of our teachers, Mr. Basson, is retiring, who is the only one who had a master's degree and was able to teach dual enrollment. And we are aware that the district does not want to rehire for his position, but this leaves a major strain in our academics. Seniors are no longer able to take higher level courses on campus, and it will continue in following years. This is because Mr. Basson taught dual enrollment political science, but also we were deceived and told that AP Gov was going to be available. But now it came to our attention that it no longer will, and change must happen. A solution to this problem is sending teachers in our history department to AP training, and we are aware that some teachers are already interested. But what also needs to be done is at least hire a part-time teacher to take over some of the college prep classes. But most importantly, we would like to emphasize that in these history classes, we need to require teachers to include culturally relevant information in a curriculum and lessons based on different figures of history.
One of the, a strong AVID program in school can transform the instruction systems, leadership, and culture of the school. and AVID really focuses on gauging students to a college path. And the middle school actually used to have an AVID site team, and where teachers of different subject criterias would come and see how they could together further help their students. And one of the AVID key ideas is to promote rigorous content and prepare high school students for college classes. And lacking the dual enrollment classes or the higher level history classes can really fracture like our preparedness for college and for what college courses will be like. And what it does is collects evidence to illustrate and support the student access to rigorous curriculum and address equity issues and barriers on campus.
So lastly, we request that you implement a mandatory cultural training for teachers. So this training would mean the teachers were trained to be anti-racist, anti-bias, and have cultural competency for all teachers, administrators, and school personnel. So this is important because teachers will be able to further connect with their students, create better bonds, and they will understand backgrounds and the lives of their students. It helps teachers have awareness of other cultures, learn and build on each student's unique cultural background, and potentially have culturally relevant information and curriculum in their lesson plans that the students will perform better at, since they can resonate with the characters. So how can this be seen in the classroom? Showing interest in students' ethnic backgrounds, having an inclusive curriculum that is respectful to different cultures, and I promise you, students will perform better. So lastly, it was my hope today, not just to tell you about all the things that Cade and my fellow students have done, or to just tell you about how we feel and move on, but to tell you how we feel and move on, but to hear our call to action that we need so much more. My request to the board and to you, Superintendent Rigby, is that these issues will be put on the next agenda for open dialogue and the discussion and further discussion so that we can be the leaders for change in our county. Thank you.
Nice job, girls.
Thank you. Yes.
Do you have any further comments?
Well, I wanted to thank Laura and her team. You've done a really great job of leading. And we are planning to agendize a discussion at the next meeting on the 23rd. So we hope that you can join us. We really appreciate all your letter, as well as the information that you've shared on the slides. And may I ask, would you be kind enough to email them to me? Because I would like to share them with our district leadership team, as well as the high school staff.
Okay.
That would be very helpful. And then we will invite more of the district representatives to join us at the board meeting on the 23rd, and you're welcome to join your colleagues. And we will agendize this for a more robust discussion as the topic deserves. So we really appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you again. You've raised some serious concerns that we can address.
Thank you very much, girls. I'd like to move on to D2.
Oh, excuse me, Sally, before we move on, there are a few more things I wanted to share from the superintendent's report. I wanted to take the time to congratulate our 151 seniors who will be graduating this Thursday night in the most unique and unusual drive-in graduation ceremony in the 103rd history of CHS graduations. We invite everyone to join us. It'll be live streamed on Instagram and YouTube, and we look forward to it. And I'd like to shout out to Mr. Corneo and the parent group at the high school and the high school staff for doing a great job in organizing which we hope is worthy of recognizing each and every student that's graduating. Additionally, I wanted to introduce our new CHS assistant principal. We'd like to thank Mr. Ray Vasquez for his 5 years of excellent service to our students and the school community. And we wish him well in his new position. He will be principal and assistant superintendent in Los Olivos. Please join me in welcoming Kim Ortega, who is a secondary ELD TOSA for Santa Barbara Unified School District and is also a Carpinteria resident. And she will serve as our new assistant principal at Carp High. So welcome, Kim. We look forward to working with you. Kim previously taught at Culver City High School and La Cuesta Continuation High School in Santa Barbara. And she earned her undergraduate degrees at Cal State Northridge and her master's degree in teaching credential at Loyola Marymount. So we look forward to working with Kim. Thank you so much, Kim. I also would like to share some information about school reopening. State Superintendent Tony Thurmond announced on Friday that CDE was going to release their guidance document. It is entitled Stronger Together, a guidebook for the safe reopening of California public schools. It was to be released on Monday, and yes, indeed, it was released. It is a guidance on how to, as we work with Santa Barbara County Public Health and Santa Barbara County Schools, to navigate our next steps and, importantly, implement the recommendations that have been provided regarding student and employee safety. The guidance document has recommendations in several areas: face coverings, physical distancing, and symptom screening. Additionally, Superintendent Thurmond stated that they are advocating with the governor's office, the legislature, and the Department of Finance regarding the financial resources that will be necessary for us to reopen safely, especially with the physical distance measures in place. So thank you.
Thank you, Diana. It is an interesting document, and you can get it online.
Yes, it's posted on the website.
Yeah. I'll move on to D2, a distance learning presentation from Michelle Fox, the principal of Aliso and Summerlin Schools.
Good evening, everybody. How are you guys tonight?
Good.
Good to see you all. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. Thank you. There. Is everyone able to see that?
We got it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
For some reason, though, it's not letting me go through it. Oh, there it goes. Let me. All righty. So distance learning at Aliso and Summerlin. So this has been, like everyone has said, a challenging time, but also a time for us to really learn and tackle new opportunities. And so although it has given us a little bit of a run for our money, I think that we have really done a good job district-wide and the teachers at Aliso and Summerlin. So when we started on March 13th, we started looking at how are we, that was our last day on campus, and we're like, how are we going to begin this? What do we need to do? So we started thinking about how are we going to get this information from us to them, and of course it was going to be with technology. So we started with a survey to parents, asking them about their access to devices and also to the internet. So we tallied all that, and we worked with Diana and Cox and Aaron, and we've made sure that we had hotspots and we had enough devices and we had access, and that's how we started our adventure. So so the week of March 30th, after spring break, we started distributing all this, and you can see this is, we have some teachers from Aliso and from Summerlin, and we're passing out the devices. Mrs. Clark and Mr. Weiberg and Mrs. Tarantino over there on the far left, and then Liz, and then Miss Romont and Jen, and then Dr. Colson. And we handed out over about 300 laptops and iPads, and it was amazing. It was just a big production. It was a great beginning to this, I keep saying adventure. a lot of this was with the help of Aaron and John, and helping us to get the access to internet. Aaron was instrumental in working with different people to make sure that that was available to all of our students. So that same week, teachers began connecting with their students. So as soon as they got their iPads and their internet, we were able to start connecting. And so these are some of the things that we started using. Zoom became like instant, an essential part of our learning. It took for a while for us to get familiar with it, for the students to get familiar with it, with the parents to get familiar with it. But now it's secondhand, and we have kindergartners now explaining to their teachers how to get into Zoom and to share their screens. Parent Square has been an essential part of our communication. A lot of our kindergarten, first grade use that as a way of communicating with their parents. The telephone, we have some parents and students that aren't able to access some of our programs. The only way that they can access us is through FaceTime and messaging. And so they're using their phones and they're FaceTiming and messaging there on Facebook. But I think, and then we have some teachers that are using Seesaw. But I think our most instrumental piece right now has been all the Google Suites we've been using. So Google Classroom, Google Documents, all those programs that allow us to connect with the kids. Let's see here. So when we started connecting, we started figuring out what we needed to do. We got them the technology, we were able to communicate, but then we needed to start also preparing the lessons that we were going to work with them with. So we got Bridges Math out to students electronically, and also in their hard copies and their consumables. Kindergarten teachers, this is a picture of Mrs. Toffelmeyer's, but all the TK and kindergartners had these elaborate lesson plans where they provided lessons for 12 weeks of instructions, and they were broken down by each week with a lesson plan for the parents to follow and what week was what, and then they coordinated those with their online information. Then we also had Wonders that went out, and we were using both Wonders consumables, but also the online versions of things. And you can see there on either side here at the bottom are packages of materials that the teachers bagged up to send home to them. And then we also, our 4th and 5th grade prepared their ReadyGen to get out to teachers. Another big thing that was going on through this time was the lunch, and it's been instrumental. I was speaking with a parent last night who said that this has been such an important part of her day that it just helps them with routine. They get to be back on the campus a little bit and see, have some connection still to the campus. And so it's had its unintended consequences, and it's really something that they look forward to. But Michelle and her crew have done a really outstanding job of making sure that our kids have the nutritious breakfast, lunch that they need. And then as I hear, the numbers keep going up day by day. So that's encouraging. So as we started working through, we were figuring out what was going to work for parents and for students. And we started out slowly and started looking at what our students needed and what our families needed. And teachers began preparing and getting out their schedules and routines. And these are a few examples of what they were sending out. And you can see that some of them have must-dos and may-dos, and they have links to Zoom conferences and Flipgrid lessons. There's more detail and there's less detail, but it's really allowed parents some structure of what's going on in the day. And it's been helpful for many parents to have that structure. Let's see, they also, in this time, they schedule their Google Chats and they schedule their FaceTime, and they have office hours. So everybody's kind of doing something a little different to meet the needs of all of their families. we're finding that not one schedule works for everybody. So, so here are some of the things that when students find their assignments. So I mentioned earlier that kindergarten, first grade use a lot of the parent square. And so when you get into their parent square, you can see that there's some videos. This is Mrs. Neely.
Hi, kindergartners. Congratulations
Talking to
on
her
finishing
students.
another week of remote learning. You are all doing such a great.
So many of the teachers are doing that. You have, you can see that Miss McDuffie here has her Google Classroom, and it's all her lessons are listed. And then here's from Miss Melgosa in 4th grade. She's got links and she's got it color coded. So finding what works best for their grade level and for their classroom. And I can't see anybody, so if you have any questions, just will you holler out. As I'm presenting, I don't see faces right now. We're also using the Google Classroom and websites. So you can see here that this is just a snapshot from one of the pages that the teachers have all made Google Classrooms in grades 1st through 5th. And you can click in and see a stream of lessons. Here's Miss Melgosa. And she's telling them what they're going to be doing for that day. There's a flyer, there's a schedule. So it's a really easy way for students to connect and find what they need. A lot of teachers are using websites. And this is an example of the 3rd grade website. And they have a welcome message, and all 3 of our 3rd grade teachers are working on this together. They're each contributing in a different way to make this accessible to kids. But up here in the corner, you'll see things like how they can email their teacher. Sorry, I need to. And let's see here, things that you can, they have their art zone where they show their work art they've been working on. And then there's a bunch of different resources for the students where they can click on and access the things that they need. There's a place for parents. So there's lots of good resources in there for our students and parents. And then these are some of the other things. Excuse me, I have a new puppy and she's getting into something right now, I'm sorry. So this is an example of the kindergarten website. There's videos that they can get into, and parents can access the alphabet and songs and chants and all those type of things that they might be getting at school, but it's in one spot so that they can easily access it. Mrs. Clark, our reading intervention, does a weekly phonics lesson for different grade levels and shares those out with all the teachers, and every teacher puts that on their website. There's an example of how Mr. Weiberg allows them to get in and get his email. This is in the middle here, the daily assignments. These little buttons allow students to just click right in and their assignments pop right up. Mr. Macias has been doing stories with Loki. Loki is his cat, and he reads a book every week, and that goes out to every teacher, and they put it on their website. Here's an example of Ms. Lewandowski teaching phonics or a sounds and letters lesson. And then you'll see other things that kids can do in their free time. We've been Zooming a lot, lots and lots of Zooms. And I think that that teachers are going to be happy when it's the summer break so that they can stop Zooming for a little while. And then we have all these other things that we've been doing besides those deep academics. We have been working with Mr. Laser at Summerland, and also Mr. Oh, I just forgot his name, sorry.
Vivia.
No. Well, Mr. Pavia is doing it too. I can't remember. Mr. Austin. And he's been doing flip grids with the kids, and they have to do like a little tongue twister or something that,
This is my tongue twister. Silly, sally, shaggy, shoot, 7 silly sheep. The 7 silly sheep, silly, sally, shoot, silly, sally, south.
And that's using Flipgrid. So one thing that's been coming out of this is that teachers are getting so creative on what they use and finding ways to connect with their students. And Flipgrid has been a great tool, and they can tape themselves and then just upload it, and it goes straight into Google Classroom. Our GATE teacher has been working hard too, and she's providing lessons. You can see on her website that there's a detailed lesson of what they're going to be doing. So they get a lot of information from GATE. Our 4th and 5th graders participated in Battle of the Books, and that was an extra edition, and it took a lot of time because it was an unusual circumstance where we had over 140, students competing online during Battle of the Books. And as you know, that usually is in small groups on a campus. So the county really worked it to make sure that we still had it, and kids were able to participate and prepare for that. Our counselor set up his website too, so kids can click in and make appointments with him or check into his resources. Our after-school program was very instrumental. They provided tutoring, they provided activities during the day, they provided social emotional access for parents, and there's also additional free resources that they can access if they wanted more. Some of our teachers went on virtual field trips. So Miss Eden wasn't able to go to the zoo this year, so she did do a virtual field trip with her students. Mr. Pavia is doing music with his students, and I think that is probably one of the most amazing things, to be able to teach music via Zoom. So just kudos to him. He's been doing an awesome job, and there's been lots of positive feedback from parents and students on that program. And then we also have been working with CCEP, the Children's Creative Project, and we had arts in our classroom prior to the closure, and they've continued to do art videos. So this is one of our artists.
Hi artists, I hope you're doing well and staying safe and healthy. I wanted to let you know that today we are going to be talking about landscapes. So I wanted to share with you a very special trip I got.
So I can share that later, but she goes, she's talking about a trip that she took to Carrizo Plains where the wildflowers were growing. And so she had pictures, and then she taught a lesson based on landscapes using her experience. It was a really great lesson. And as we've been learning more and more, we're just learning about what else do we need to do if in fact we are having to do distance learning next year. And some of the things that we're looking into are, we did a professional development on Seesaw to see if that was something that would work for our students. We had a presentation last Thursday on Google websites. All teachers are going to have Google websites for easy access for students and parents. We're working with site leadership, with PFA, PFS, ELAC, teachers, parents, trying to get info and feedback from them. Coordinating safety guidelines and schedules. We're working with the community, how we're going to communicate and make sure that that's more streamlined, and planning for the what if, and then just continuing to do more with less. And so that's kind of been our nutshell on distance learning.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank your staffs. It is amazing, because you were really starting kind of from zero, and it's taken off, and it's very impressive. So thank you.
Great job, thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, if you have a chance, get into some of it's on their website, Aliso's website. You can get into some of the teacher websites there and just kind of look at what they're doing. They're doing some fun things. So.
Does any of the board member have questions for Michelle?
Yes, actually I do. Michelle.
Okay.
We understand that distance learning was the only way to go. But how would you compare distance learning from the actual learning in the classroom?
It's not the same. It's not the same. No.
Will student, let's say, get behind going into third, fourth, fifth grade, or I don't know. I would like to,
Can you repeat that? I don't think I quite understood that question.
Yes. Let's say someone, student, going from first, second grade, or just from second to third, will they be able to be at the same level?
Our teachers have been working really hard to meet the needs and to work on those standards and address it. Of course, nothing is the same as if they were in the classroom with those teachers and getting that really instruction that way. But I feel really confident in our teachers' instructions that they're really pushing our kids and providing them the best thing that we can do via the circumstances that we have.
Right. We're not any different than the schools in all of California and throughout the nation. There is learning loss when you are relying only on remote learning. It's been clearly documented. So the good news is we have excellent teachers that will focus on where the students are performing in relationship to the grade level standards, and they will teach directly to the level where the students are at and help them accelerate their learning so they can master those grade level standards. But we all recognize that distance learning does not replace teachers in the classroom.
No, not at all.
No.
But I think what I've noticed is that what teachers are learning from this distance learning is going to enhance what they do in the classroom. I really think that their skills are getting stronger and stronger from this, and they're just going to bring so much more back to them when we come back into the classroom.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle, very much.
Okay.
And I'll move on to D3. The Assistant Superintendent Maureen Fitzgerald will give the food services proposal.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
No.
No, not yet. That better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So at the last board meeting, we were talking about food services and what the plan is for reorganizing the department. So tonight you have both a written report, but I've also prepared this PowerPoint that kind of puts it in a better visual context. So I'm going to go through a few slides that explain what we're doing. There are 3 programs that allow us to serve meals to students. The National School Lunch Program, which is our traditional breakfast and lunch program. It requires an application from the parent to qualify for free and reduced meals. If we do not have an application on file, they're full paid meals. Under the National School Lunch Program, it is very regulated as far as what you put in a meal component, how much is served, what quantities you have in each recipe, and how many options you have in different food groups. It's very regulated. And I believe in the written report, I gave you an example of a meal component requirement. It's quite involved. And so under the National School Lunch Program, that's where you submit claims and get reimbursed for free and reduced students. And then you receive revenue for the meals that you sell, both by meal and by a la carte. And we operated through this program through March 13th of 2020, right as we were at stay-at-home orders. The next option is called the seamless summer option. And this is the option that's used when you're serving during summer school, when school is not in session. Under this option, it doesn't require an application, and it allows any student up to the age of 18 to eat free. And that is regardless of whether that student is a CUSD student or not. So anybody in the community can come and eat up to the age of 18 free. This operates under the same guidelines as the National School Lunch Program. So while any student can come and eat free, you still have to comply with meal component standards and all of the things that go into recipe making, etc. However, post-COVID, or let's just say COVID-19 is upon us. Everybody's at home. What do we do to feed our kids? The federal government, the state government recognize that in order for us to be able to serve kids, all kids, and lift the guidelines under the National School Lunch Program, they had to issue several waivers. We have waivers that limit, that say you can serve food anywhere in the community. You can serve whatever you have to the community as far as lunches and breakfast are concerned. And of course that's within, within some nutritional standards, but they've lifted all of that. And it doesn't matter how many you serve or whether it's on a school site or not. So they basically lifted all the requirements just to be able to feed kids during this shutdown. Understanding too that most families are going to rely on these meals as their sole source of lunch. And then the third program that we participate in is called the After School Meal Supplement. That's the snacks that are provided in the after school program. And those are also free, but there's also strict guidelines as to what that snack can be. It has the same nutritional component value restrictions as the National School Lunch Program. So it's not like you can just get bags of chips and pretzels or, pudding and milk and juice. They are really strict as far as, sodium content and sugar content and fat content and serving size. There's a lot of restrictions there. And like I said, the only students that are participating are those that are in the after school program. So the next slide is a program cost and participation history going back to 15-16. This is listed as, it's summarized in the spreadsheet analysis that you have. It's very specific, but I'm going to generalize this as federal, state, and local revenue. This is federal reimbursement, which is the majority of our revenue under the program for free and reduced kids. The state does contribute a reimbursement on free and reduced, but it's at I would say at about 1/10 of what the federal government reimburses. And then a large amount of our revenue is local revenue from a la carte sales, and that's mostly at the middle and high school. And then over the past many years, the district has required the general fund to also contribute money to make the fund balance. So 15-16, we had $1,081,000 in revenue. We required the district to give $35,000 for the program to be revenue neutral. You see in that year, their total revenue is less than the expense. We had some fund balance in there from it was actually an equipment grant. 16-17 is more of a traditional year. The general fund had a contribution of $188,933. I want to note that the revenue was way down that year. That was the beginning of what we saw in a decline of families willing to fill out a free and a reduced lunch application. There was a real immigration threat. Families were not going to fill that out under any circumstance. So we lost a lot of revenue and able to claim those free and reduced kids. The 17-18 year, the revenue came back up. We worked very hard to get those applications in, but you see the contribution was zero. In that year, we had one-time money that had been set aside for an administrative review as a payback, and we did not have to pay that back. So that was able to make the fund solvent that one year. And then last year, 18-19, We saw the revenue down again. And the contribution was, when we closed the year, was 109, just under 110,000. So you can see the pattern. In the current year, at second interim, we anticipated a contribution of 71.5. That was pre-COVID. That was under the National School Lunch Program. All of this is under the National School Lunch Program. We haven't served summer meals for the past 2 years due to Measure U, not having access to our sites and our kitchens. And then you can see in the estimated actuals, we've presented this before, this is post-COVID, and under the Seamless Summer waiver, our revenue is down significantly. And I'll talk about the last 2 lines in just a minute. And we're anticipating at the end of this current year a contribution of just under $280,000. So when we go down past the finances and we kind of drill into the data, we see average monthly lunches served, and this is just lunches. You see from 15-16, we served an average daily of 1,326 lunches. And before the estimated actuals, I'm going to go to the second interim column, and I took this data at October, which is one of our high months. We had 1,078. So you can see that our participation is down significantly. And with the way we're serving meals now, grab and go, and under COVID, they're down even further. 844 is an average. We have gone as low as 110 meals a day, and we've gone as high like 2 or 3 times into the 900s. Those are the days we're giving out fresh vegetable packages that were left over from the food drives. But on an average, we're around 500 a day. And then our staffing has also fluctuated. At our peak in 15-16, we had 16 staff members, and that includes the coordinator. And as participation has gone down and our enrollment has gone down, but not as significant as the participation, it went up a little bit, and then it went back down in 18-19. And 18-19 is when we started to say, where are we going to be able to reduce costs without doing layoffs? And so we started to not fill positions through attrition. And then at the second interim this year, we had 15 staff at the beginning of the year, and we reduced it by 2 3-hour positions that became vacant. People left, they resigned. We did not fill those 2 3-hour positions. So we currently have 13 staff members. And then we're going to fast forward into what we're projecting for 2021. Right now, I'm assuming, and the assumption has been ongoing, that we will have some sort of blended model opening school and not have everybody back to school at 100%. This is assuming that 2021, we will continue under the seamless summer option, meaning we have a flat reimbursement rate for every student. School lunch applications don't apply. If that does not happen, it does change this, and we'll bring it back as we know more. So you can see that the revenue anticipated is greatly reduced. We have anticipated an average of 1,880 lunches a day with 10 employees. And I'll get into the number of employees and how they're going to be utilized. And that is a reduction of 3 team leaders that we brought to the board meeting last meeting. So our current model is that we have 4 kitchens, the high school, the middle school, Catalino, and Aliso. Each kitchen prepares and serves breakfast and lunch at their site exclusively. Each kitchen has 1 team leader, that's 8 hours a day, a 6-hour cafeteria assistant senior, a 6-hour cafeteria assistant cashier, and the high school and the middle school both use student workers on top of that. High school includes Rincon, the middle school includes SEALS, Catalino includes Family School, and then Aliso includes Summerland. So that's the model we currently have. That's what we've operated on for forever. So some of the thought that has gone into the reorganization of the department, and it's been a conversation, like I said, for a couple of years now, is this the most economical way to be able to prepare and serve lunch and breakfast, not just as far as economy of food preparation, but for consistency. We've had issues with consistency. The elementary school menus aren't always the same. Middle high school isn't always the same. There's a lot of stuff that maybe runs out at one site but not at the other site. So there's a lot of inconsistencies, and we wanted to see if we can help address that. So with the new plan, we will use the high school as a central prep kitchen. All meals will be prepared there. And I'm assuming, the assumption is that we're going to have a modified school schedule. We'll have a blended option. Not 100% of our students will be on campus each day. And so those meals at this point are grab and go, and they will be transported by the transportation staff out to Catalino, the middle school, Aliso, and Summerlin. The high school obviously stay at this high school. The 2 staff will travel from the central kitchen from the high school to Aliso, 2 to Catalino, and 2 to the middle school to do service. And right now it'll be, right now we're looking at, depending on the model, it'll be lunch in the classroom, most likely for the afternoon program. It depends on how the model is working, but it'll all be non-cafeteria lunches, and it'll be in the classroom or potentially in some outside space, rotating. Summerlin will be transported by the transportation staff, and there's only 3 classrooms at Summerlin, and they'll be passed out by the office coordinator. And that's what we do now. We transport them, we drop them off, and they're passed out by the office coordinator. The rest of the, this model does not serve breakfast. So we will evaluate whether we can do breakfast as we know more about what the schedule is going to look like next year, because the challenge, let's just say we have a half day, some students come in the morning, some in the afternoon. The morning students get to grab and go their breakfast, lunch, but the afternoon students are going to eat in the classroom, and they can't get a breakfast that sits in a bag. And so there's some equities involved. So right now it's just lunch service. The transition plan is we're currently preparing the kitchen at the high school, going through shelves and cleaning it out and making sure everything is working order. We're moving all food product from to the high school or the warehouse from the other sites, depending on capacity. We're repairing some equipment over the summer as needed. There's equipment at the high school we're not utilizing that we want to utilize. We still have to create staff schedules. We're talking about staggering staff day so that in the, not everybody's coming in from 6 to 2 or whatever. We need to have some folks stay till 3 or 4 to be able to do meal prep for the next day. And then we're finalizing the upgrade to Meals Plus. This is a new system that we put in place before COVID, after ransomware, next to Locust. But we're going to be building all of our cold serve menus for the fall and completing our full serve menus so that all menus are going to be ready when we open school. So that is the plan that we have right now for the central kitchen. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I also want to introduce, and we can do that after I introduce Michelle. I'm going to end the PowerPoint. And I want to introduce Michelle Hernandez. She's the new coordinator of Child Nutrition and Wellness. She's been on board since early April, good timing. And she's done an outstanding job providing some pretty amazing lunches that you would not expect to go in a bag. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle. She's going to introduce herself and share a little bit about her experience and what she's been doing over the last couple months. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Can.
Okay, great. So first I'd like to say thank you for the warm welcome to everyone that I've met so far. It's been great to to be on board. I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I am from Santa Barbara. I have about 5 generations from Santa Barbara, so kind of local, as local as you can get. And I went to Santa Barbara City College. I did the food service program there. And then I went to the Culinary Institute of America in New York to get my bachelor's degree. I spent about 6 years in New York doing cooking, as well as traveling with the Culinary Institute of America to regional cuisines, and studied in Italy, in every part of the country aside from Sicily. So I'm very well versed in Italian cuisine. I spent the past 25 years cooking and chefing in the B&I industry, the business industry, and in that sector, running kitchens for companies like Google and Sony, Amgen, and larger production facilities that run central kitchens. So I'm very familiar with pros and cons, and I'm happy to bring that service style to the school district. What brings me here? I, like many children that I serve right now, remember really relying on the food services at school. My father worked long hours in construction, and my mom did a lengthy commute to and from work. So I know how important it really is to eat at school, and to provide the children a food service program that they can rely on and be proud of. I have a 2.5-year-old son, and just really want to provide services that he and children his age can be proud of when they go to school. So that's what brings me here. I have, for the past 2.5 months, been working with the staff in the kitchens here. I started in a different due to COVID. So I started producing, when I started, it was about 200 meals a day we were doing, give or take. And we were serving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. And so once I got my feet wet and felt comfortable, a couple weeks later, we changed the menu. Our participation went from 200 a day to about 500 a day. A few weeks after that, changed the menus a little bit more, and our participation fluctuates between 3. And I've just been working really well and trying to, work with the folks that we have on board. They're wonderful people. I know that we only have partial staff due to COVID right now, but everyone's been pulling together and doing a great job. It's actually given me some time to work closely one-on-one with the staff that we have right now, learning their strengths and what each of them provides to the team. A little bit about Central Kitchen. I know that's been heavy on everyone's mind at the moment, the new transition in production. I've done Central Kitchen both locally and in Southern California, most recently contracting with Cottage Hospital, the rehabilitation there. And that's a contract that had been in place for decades. And I did work with that contract serving Cottage Hospital, so I'm very familiar with local regulations, programs here. The Central Kitchen does allow for cost savings in different ways, such as ordering, the minimization of waste, productivity, things like that. But the consistency to the students in service and recipes and food quality and quantity is something that's very important that we'll be able to really get a good handle on. And Maureen kind of touched a little bit on that as far as the quality of recipes and in shortages, to be able to get a better handle on. Not only does it provide the students with better quality, but it also helps employees utilize their strengths. So something that I've noticed working in the kitchen side by side is that you have different personnel that really, they come with great strengths and experiences. I have one gal that's on the team who ran a bakery for over 20 years. And, you know, working in different kitchens, she's not really able to utilize those skills. Working in separate kitchens, you kind of wear many hats. So you can be a server for part of the day, you could be dishwashing for part of the day, being a cook for part of the day, a receiver, you know, wearing 10 different hats. So pulling it all in and kind of working together as a team and having a much larger team at Central Kitchen, you're able to, you know, cook, have a little bit more of an outgoing personality to serve the meals and talk with family and folks, and then folks that are better at baking and have experience doing that, you really utilize their skills in that area. So that's a great benefit that I'm not sure the personnel is aware of yet, but you know, having more people on the team in one kitchen will be very helpful. Let's see. The food program. So again, I talked a little bit about what I've been doing since I've started, since I've onboarded. We've went from about 200 meals to now doing between 550 to 600. And that, I believe, is just changing the menu items that we were putting on the jelly sandwich can get a little tiring, you know, after a couple weeks. But we're now serving items like teriyaki chicken with pineapple coleslaw over brown rice, and just adding some things in there that we can't serve hot food, so I'm trying to be creative with the seasonal stuff that we do have. Fortunately, we are in Santa Barbara, California, so we have bountiful produce at the moment. So I also did partner with local produce vendors to bring in supplemental food items to the district families through a program called Farmers to Families. We have run this program for about 3 Fridays now, and the last 2 Fridays, we've increased our participation from those 550 students, and we're now seeing approximately 1,000 students on Fridays. This Friday will be our last Friday running that program, so almost double our participation. We also were able to distribute approximately 9,000 pounds in free supplemental food on those Fridays, so it's been the folks in the district, the families. Looking forward, as the school year starts for next year, I'd like to, you know, depending on how we open, I'd like to increase or try to increase participation by running different food programs, increasing participation by being creative for programs like cookbooks, you know, getting families involved in this program can be run, delivering meals and grabbing those, taken home, but you know, just asking families to get involved by maybe submitting a family recipe that, you know, their grandmothers used to make or their mom makes, and children can get involved with their families, jot down you know, a recipe and why it's important to them, and submit that. And so then maybe once a month we'll draw one of those recipes, and everyone throughout the district can try that recipe, and maybe create a cookbook at the end of the year with those recipes. But somehow involved, whether we are distance learning or whether they're on campus. But it's a good way to create participation, get people excited about food service, and really get the buy-in on the program that we're doing, get them involved. Also, I plan to increase seasonality, the menus, increasing things that we grow here in Santa Barbara County, working with local farmers, and really changing some of the recipes that we have. Also outdoor cooking events. I'd like to do cooking demos and have people watch from a distance what we're doing, and get some smells and flavor profiles, be able to talk to folks as they're coming and going to class. Not hands-on at the moment, but from a distance, you know, and just be able to talk with children and families about what we're doing in the food service program. I'd like to, if I could share my screen with you just for a moment, I'd like to share some of the pictures that we have. Will give you a little bit of an eye to what we're doing, as I have some plating of some recipes that we have, and some of our pictures from farm to families. Just share here. I believe
I apologize if you haven't had dinner.
Can you guys see the photos here?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, so this was last Friday, as you can see. This is the over 9,000 pounds of food that we distributed. The line was down the street, and we had families coming from both directions. So it has been very popular and has doubled our participation. This is some lunches heading out. This is a service. Again, you can see the lines forming. We've actually had a line starting to form 20 minutes before service. Folks are lined up and waiting, so very excited. Packing some lunches and getting things ready. It's a photo of us producing bags. You can't see it from here, but we do have the entire cafeteria filled with lunch bags. Over 900 bags for the Fridays. That's outside before we started the hustle and bustle. Some more packing of lunches. This is the Hawaiian slaw with teriyaki chicken.
Nice.
It is a fruit and yogurt parfait. The blueberries were locally donated. The granola was made in-house, and the yogurt is an organic yogurt. We have a brown rice salad that's about to be tossed with a little bit of strawberry vinaigrette, apples, strawberries, cranberries, and some brown rice, spinach. And that is all that I have for you at the moment. Okay. How to stop the screen sharing. Give me 1 second. Bear with me here. Oh. Okay. Stop share. Okay. And that's all that I have for you. I'm very happy to be here, very excited at all the possibilities, and open it up to questions if you have any.
That was great, Michelle.
So good.
I'm very excited that everything you presented there looked fantastic, and I think it'll be. I think a lot of our students will really enjoy getting some good scratch cooked meals that have a wide variation of choices. So that's a great sampling you showed us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is very exciting. So excited to have you aboard, Michelle. It looks great. I'm glad that all the schools will have the same opportunity to have your cooking. So
yeah.
You know, I'm very, you know, everything that we do is scratch made, marinated in-house, dressings made in-house, fresh and local. I love food. It's my passion. So there are no shortcuts. There are going to be some changes in the kitchen, but all for the better, I guarantee you.
Yep. I'm very excited to have Michelle on the team.
Question for Michelle?
Yeah, I have one question too.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, Michelle. Yes. How are you going to keep track of nutritional meals so that our students do not, let's say, become obese? You know, because that's something that we should all
of course
be concerned about.
Yes. So the items that I do utilize, you know, there are a lot of, when you purchase dressings, let's say from a food vendor and they are pre-made, they come with not so savory fats. And I use a lot of herbs in marinating as opposed to using jars and pre-made marinades and dressings. I use a lot of olive oil, a lot of natural reductions. So a lot of things that I marinate with to make dressings, I will take, let's say, strawberries, herbs, things like that, and I'll make a reduction and use that for flavoring instead of adding more salt or more fat, things like that, which...
yeah, and Rogelio, the Healthy Kids Act under Michelle Obama put a lot of nutritional guidelines and regulations in place. So we're controlled as to the fat content, sodium content, sugar content. Those are all very highly regulated in the program.
They are, but as far as going the extra mile and adding that extra flavor and that extra touch to items are really done by fresh herbs, different things like that I'm very well versed in. So I think we're going to get a lot more flavor, a lot more versatility in recipes, but it doesn't necessarily mean more fat or more calories.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Michelle had one.
So, Michelle, welcome. Your name will be
Thank
easy
you.
for me to remember. And you are clearly very experienced, and I'm really excited about your ideas. So this is a question not just for your department, but I guess maybe for leadership as well. Is, you know, every year we struggle with getting these free and reduced applications back. And I know that we've tried different outreach things, but like what's the new angle of how we're going to get these collected? Because that is what's affecting our revenue, and that's what's affecting us becoming provision to schools and things like that.
It's nice that you brought that up. Actually, that's something that I discussed with Maureen last week, you know, and just what has been done year over year. Let's brainstorm on what we can do new and different. You know, how can we really get participation in from folks in the community? And so we're tossing around some ideas at the moment, but that is front and center on, you know, what needs to happen, because you know, there's not much in other aspects as far as getting revenue in, but that one really is important. One, making sure that we get everyone signed up and there aren't a lot of hiccups with families as they start the new school year, and just doing more outreach on my part and my end. So I've been kind of, you know, asking different members of you know, different people that I've met that have that play a role in that, and what I can do. Just, we're still kind of roundtabling on that, but it is front and center, something we just discussed a few days ago. Yeah, Maureen, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so that comes to the larger conversation on how we're going to do our enrollment, in-person enrollment days that we do every year to bring families onto the campus, help them do their enrollments and get the applications filled out. It's going to be a more challenging year this year than any. However, having said that, in all likelihood, we'll have a higher direct cert number this year due to the high unemployment rates. So what I think we need to focus on, and I think this is what Michelle and I were talking about, and with Mari also I've been talking, if we, you know, we can assist families in filling out the application. It's laborsome, but the gift is that Michelle is fully bilingual. She can be able to communicate with families and take some of that off the site coordinators and make sure that, you know, I have staff in the business office that we've transitioned into, also like with Miguel, who's also bilingual, to be able to help with the families, converse with the families, take their information over the phone, help them to just bring in the documents we need to look at. And you know, we're doing everything we can to get them enrolled. And you know, we've done mass mailings. That's not always successful. Online's not that successful. So I think that the key is going to be individual contact with families.
Yeah. So I would say the bottom line is one-to-one.
Yeah, I think that's the only way it's going to work.
Yes. And we expect our principals to know the families that they need to provide the assistance. Now, they don't need to provide it directly. We have Michelle and food services that can do it. We have district office people to support the sites in providing, but it is direct one-to-one assistance. We also have accounting, and we know which families owe money. And so those are the families that we can work with and helping them fill out an application. But it boils down to personalized service one-to-one.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we will move on to Michelle again. No, D4, the COVID-19 operations written report for Carpinteria Unified School District, the first reading. May I have a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
A second. Questions?
Well, I just wanted to introduce it, Sally, that the state is requiring, the state is requiring us to put our school closure plan that I presented in March. They want it in this template. So this template is what we presented in March regarding what services and how we were going to provide remote learning, how we were going to provide food services, and how we were going to partner in providing some daycare. So whatever we put in that school report is now in this COVID-19 report that is required with the budget to be approved.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving on to D5. Maureen, again, presenting the budget.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. First, I'm going to why do I not see it here? Okay. All right. So the 2021 preliminary budget. This is the hearing. This is the preliminary budget and the budget hearing tonight. And then on the 23rd is when we adopt a budget. So this is what we call our final budget, and the board obviously has the opportunity to make changes as they direct staff, but this is the district's staff's budget. We're going to open with our mission again. I think this is important because we are committed to providing quality educational programs and a caring, positive environment. And I think we've been very challenged to do that during this time of COVID. And I think with Michelle's presentation, I mean, I'm impressed. I have kids at home also struggling through it. And I think this has been a step up for everybody. Our core values are academic achievement, respectful community, and continuous improvement. And I think we continue to meet these district core values. Our goals are to increase student learning, promote safe and respectful schools, develop budgets to support educational programs while maintaining sustainability, increase efficiencies and effectiveness of district operations, and to build community support and engagement. These are all very solid goals. And our core budgeting principles are so that students and their learning are at the center of our decisions. And I'm gonna go, this will be reflected as we get further on our slides, that teaching and learning conditions matter. I think that, again, we've been tested during this distance learning period of time, and I think that Carpinteria Unified has really stepped up. Proud to be part of the team. And, excuse me, and then that requested resources for programs and services and activities reflect our core values. And I think that's always the decision at the core of our decision making. Budget development process and timelines. We've been bringing budget updates to the board. The leadership discusses the budget and different improvements to student learning at every leadership team meeting. Staff meetings, principals do discuss this with their teacher groups. And we have surveyed employees for input. And then our budget presentations have been via Zoom for a couple of months now. The major timelines, you know, we're here in June now. The state must pass a budget by June 15th, which is next week. So there will be a guarantee a budget will be passed. What that will be is really uncertain at this point, and I'll talk about that a little later in the presentation. Our hearing for our budget adoption is the 9th today, and then we bring it to you for final approval on the 23rd. In July, we talked about at the last presentation that with the governor's extension of personal income tax and property tax payments, we will not know what the state's collection of either is until late July. So the state revenue is very uncertain until we get into at least August. In the month of August, we close our books, and in all likelihood, the state will revise their budget. This is the same slide as presented at the last update. The governor's May revision is still reflecting a negative net reduction of 10.23%. Excuse me. So the Senate came out with a budget that said, we don't agree with the governor. We're repealing the reduction, and we're putting all of this other one-time state money into schools to restore their cuts. The legislature concurred and said, we agree. We don't like the governor's proposal. We're going to restore the reduction so schools don't see the hit, and then we're going to put all this money into schools to help them with the distance learning and with you know, the modified setting that we're going to look at that we're looking for next year. So there's a lot of discussion at the state right now because the governor is not necessarily agreeing with the state legislature. The governor has the power. The governor could redline their proposal, or he could reject their proposal. He could redline it and approve it, and then later have all these different trailer bills come out. So it could be another 2 or 3 months before we even have any idea what our revenue is. And it's not just us, it's throughout the state. So it's very frustrating. What I do know in governor's revision, and neither the Senate or legislature had any disagreement, is that our pension rates need some relief. The pension rate increases need some relief. So the CalPERS rate for 2021 is only 20.7, and it was originally proposed at 22.7. So he's reduced that by 2%. The CalSTRS rate for 2021 was going to be 18.4. And not only did he lower that, his proposed rate is lower than the 1920 STRS rate. So he is giving some pension relief. And then you can see the total statutory cost per salary dollar below. I will tell you, when you look at the 22-23 year, that's when we make up for the savings he's giving us in 2021. It starts to accelerate back into the 25% range for PERS. Nothing comes free. History of property taxes. We have a history of about a 5% property tax. One-time assessments or one-time impound collections or one-time adjustments can go up or down a couple $100,000 every year, so you see it's not always 5. You can see in the 17, 18, 18, 19 year, we've talked about what that drop was, and that's because in the 17, 18 year, we had a huge amount of one-time dollars, and then we didn't have the same amount of money in the following year. In 1920, we're at about a 4.5% total. We have some one-time reductions in this amount, but we measure the increase on secured property taxes as a flat percent, and then the others we don't change. So we're projecting in this budget a 3% increase in the secured property taxes in 2021 and a 4% the following 2 years. This is our 2021 staffing. This is a corrected slide from the original slide that you had. I had the music FTE under teachers, and I, by my own fault, forgot to put in, omitted the athletics FTE for the high school, and it's in the middle school. It should go down to the high school. See, I didn't get it right the second time. A lot of going on, a lot of data. This is our current FTE staffing, both at the schools and the district office. Cost of living increases, this slide hasn't changed. We have not concluded our 1920 negotiations. There is no cost of living proposed in the 1920 budget as it stands. History of health and welfare. We have received a great pass for the last 3 years in our benefit rate. This year, you can see it's a negative 0.06 for 2021. That is our district paid Blue Cross PPO plan. Kaiser did receive about a 0.5% increase, so it averaged out a little over the 0.06, but this is the district's paid plan. And I've been told not to expect this again another year after COVID. This is just an illustration of what the pension increases have done to the CUSD budget over time. Over 6 years, our STRS costs have increased 1.7 million in 6 years. PERS has increased over 500,000 in 6 years. So that is a tremendous unfunded hit to our budget. And this has been talked about year over year, and this is where you see it in reality. This is a 5-year history with current year for the unrestricted general fund. And you can see that from 15-16 to the 19-20 year, you see these big variances. We've had one-time money funded in the district's budget at various levels since 14-15 into 15-16. So those positive numbers in the fund balance were all due to one-time funds. And these negatives are as they started to drop off. And we've made tremendous cuts since I've been with the district. This is my 4th year, every year to get the budget balanced. And unfortunately, with the economic times, 2021 is not skipping that practice. The total general fund, this is where we add the restricted funds back in. You don't see a lot of difference other than in the 18-19 year, you see a big negative amount. Those are spending categoricals down. That's what you do to spend them down. You deficit. And then these are, I love the illustrations. These are some of my favorite parts of building budgets, because I think a lot of people, there's numbers, there's spreadsheets, there's columns, there's all this, I call it number noise. And this is where you get to actually see how our budget's constructed in a pie chart. And 87% of our budget is coming from property taxes and state aid. Only 3% is coming from federal sources. We have 6% coming from state revenues, and that is that consists of lottery. Most of that is lottery, and we have a couple of small amounts of money for like mandated claims and some of our categoricals. And then we have 4% from local revenues. This is really a testament of our community's support of our schools, because most of these local revenues are coming from local donors, both at the school site and at the district level. And I think that is a real testimony of the dedication of this community to CUSD. The expenditure chart, again, is quite significant. Part of my screen's cut off, so I'm just gonna give myself a minute here and open my paper. So when you look at this chart, you have 56% of our budget going to direct classroom instruction. And then you've got, oh wait, this is, oh, see, wrong. Let me go to the next one. Okay, this is the wrong chart. I'm going to go to this chart and talk about it, and then I'm going to go back. So I have the charts mixed up here. That's my bad. 85% of our budget is salary and benefits. That's a high percentage.
You got the wrong chart again.
This is the right chart. Don't look at the side. Don't look at the bottom left.
Okay.
Just look at the chart. I'm sorry, I'll correct that. So 85% of our budget is salary and benefits. Only 3% of that goes to books and supplies. 9% goes to operating budgets and services, and that is including utilities, all of our technology contracts, all of our copier agreements, etc. And then we have a couple of bus leases, and the transfer out is for deferred maintenance and cafeteria fund. So you can see that our budget is highly weighted with salary and benefits. So I'm going to go back one to page 17 and ignore the bottom key. That should go to the next chart. But this is where I like to see the investment in our classrooms. You have between direct instruction, which is the largest pie, the 10%, which is instruction related services, and that's our library, it's our library media tax, it's school administration, our principals, our office coordinators, and then you've got pupil services, which are psychologists, nurses, the attendance folks, transportation staff. All three of those pieces of pie, which is more than 75% of our budget, directly serve students. The 2% that's athletics and after school program also directly serves students. The 10% general administration is everything that runs the district. That's the superintendent, the business office, payroll, insurance, it's HR, IT, the warehouse, everything else. And then that last 10%, that's maintenance, custodians, and utilities. That last piece of outgo is SELPA. Those are SELPA and tuitions. So this is the slide that explains what each color of that function chart is. So it's just a key to use. So next we have our 5-year financial history with the current year for special education. So you can see over the years, we've been as high as 78% of the general fund contributing, and currently for 2021, we're at 72%. So it hasn't varied greatly. A lot of the last 2 years, both 1920 and 2021, are due to some non-public school placements that are very costly. But this is a state required program. We don't have much room here. It's just for information. And then we get into building the 2021 budget. So our 1920 unrestricted budget revenues at the estimated actuals are $21.5 million. We're increasing our property taxes by 3% of $698,399. We are anticipating a 10% reduction to our minimum state aid. We're still budgeting this, nothing has changed yet. We have several pockets of one-time money in our current 1920 budget. We have some MAW money, which is the federal money. We have the federal preschool funding. That's a state preschool funding, the one-time money of $287,211. We received some money through the state for wildfire refund. It was supposed to come through property taxes, but it was funded outside of them. This is our SB 117. This is our COVID emergency response funding from the state of $36,000. We are reducing our lottery by 15%. Because we do know that lottery sales are down over the last couple of months significantly. We are reducing our Baylor rent, anticipating that at some point in the year, possibly we will have to vacate those properties as the sale moves forward. We are reducing our interest because we do have lower cash revenue, cash balances in the bank. And then this miscellaneous local revenue, our work comp reimbursements, there's canceled checks. It's a lot of stuff in there that we don't plan each year. We take it out. We had CISC payments this year. This is our self-insured schools consortium for liability insurance, and we had quite a hefty ransomware claim, and they paid $13,708. We also received our final Thomas Fire payment of $115. SIPE is our workers' comp JPA. They issued a one-time rebate of $385,000 because they have a high fund balance that they need to lower per their board policy. There's a reduction in transfers from Measure U, you'll see the same reduction in expenses. This is how Measure U pays us back for costs with salaries. And then we've increased our special ed contribution by 41,000, and we've reduced our restricted maintenance by 33.5. And I'm going to explain on the restricted maintenance account. There was ed code flexibility during the recession of 07-08 that said, due to the fact that the budgets were in crisis and there was a lot of cuts, you only had to contribute the amount you contributed in 2014. So we were able to reduce that contribution. Originally in my budget, that expires 2021, so that amount of contribution went back up to 3%. It's very likely in any budget, whether it's the governors, the Senate, or the legislatures, they've all agreed to go back with that flexibility and let it be the 2014 level. So I'm bringing that contribution back down, which is an increase to revenue. So our total changes in revenue are $477,015, ending with 2021 unrestricted revenue at just over 21 million, which is a 2.2% reduction over prior year. On the expenditure side, we have our budget drivers. The things that statutorily go up every year are contractual step and column increases. Health and welfare, we originally estimated at 3.5%. Here you see an average 0.5. It depends on the plan. It costs us about 15,000. This is where you saw the pension adjustments, a decrease of 0.6 for STRS, and an increase of only 2.98 for PERS, and that was it was about 2% more than that. An estimate 5% increase in utilities, property and liability insurance increase. We have what's called other assignment adjustments, where we have a vacancy for a couple of months and now it's in a full staff position. And then we are reducing the contribution to cafeteria by $34,000, and that was presented in the cafeteria presentation. So our drivers are increasing by just under 1%. We are proposing one additional teacher for Catalino, the DLI program, as it matriculates up the grades of 82.8 for a new teacher. And then we get to this really small list of proposed budget reductions. So, and I apologize for it being so small. I tried to get it on one page. So what you see here is the proposed reduction, the explanation, and the cost savings to the budget. So currently we have 2 teachers that are retiring, a social studies at the high school and a science at the middle school. And the cost savings of those 2 positions is $252,164. We had 2 classroom teachers on long-term contracts for teachers that were on medical leave all year. That savings is $135,517 by not replacing those 2 teachers because we won't need them. We are proposing a 20% reduction in school site operating budgets of $59,000. We are proposing a 10% reduction to the athletics operating budget. That includes the stipends and the supplies. It does not include transportation costs of $22,440. We are proposing a 10% reduction to legal fees, and we will do everything we can to not have to use legal services to save that. We are looking at a one-time expenditure reduction due to ransomware. So we spent money in the current year, we won't spend again next year. So that money is a savings to the budget to replace, not only to replace computers, but we bought iCloud operating systems and did some server restoration. So the costs are not going to incur next year. And then we had some one-time expenditures to put cameras in our buses and vans. That was $26,169. And here's the $35,500 that you saw as a reduction to revenue is also a reduction to expense. 25% reduction in substitute teacher costs. And this is assuming that we will return to school at some type of a blended capacity. That savings is $30,525. A reduction in transportation home to school, assuming again that we will return in the fall to some level of blended learning, and we will not be able to accommodate home to school transportation with the distance learning limitations. We have a contract with Nurse Corps directly serving a student with medical needs that will not be needed next year. That's a savings of $60,000. And we have some professional development at the high school for $11,000. And then we are not going to renew the contract for Illuminate EduClimber. That's a $32,530 savings. We currently have Crisis Go, which is an emergency response app that is now going to be grant funded. So the general fund will be relieved of that cost, $5,700. We're proposing to reduce CADA, which is the parent component only, for $31,500. We're proposing to reduce our Girls Inc. Early Bird Literacy Program out of the general fund for $27,000. Explore Ecology, which is our outdoor education K-5 of $3,200. Edmentum, we had a 3-year contract with Edmentum, which is an online learning. It's an online learning application that has not necessarily been the best tool for our use. We will not renew that contract for $68,057. We do have other options for this, and this was mostly used by Rincon. We are proposing to eliminate charter bus transportation, and this includes both athletic trips and field trips. It does not include the district buses that still remain available for those trips. And so this is a reduction of $81,021. And finally, we're looking to reduce the cost of field trips for the CME 5th grade field trip of $19,355, totaling savings of $1,047,342, which is about just under a 5% reduction in our expenditures. I had to take a breath on that one. So when we put all of that together, we have our 1920 estimated actuals at 21,980,983. We add our drivers, we add back our program improvements, and we take away the savings. We have a deficit of $746,488 with a unrestricted expenditure budget of $21,234,495. Actually, that's a reduction, I'm sorry. Change in expenditures. And then we put that all together with our revenue. Our beginning balance is all unrestricted, is 1.1 million. We have 21 million in revenue, 21.2 in expenditures. So in this proposed budget, we are deficit spending $188,074 with an ending balance of $938,849. And this brings us just to a 3.23% reserve. This on slide 27 is a side-by-side visual of our estimated actuals that we're proposing for this current year, which is at a 3.62% reserve, and the 2021 budget, which is a 3.23% reserve. And this is the 2021 budget as it's combining the unrestricted, the restricted, and the total general fund. So you can see how each column affects the total general fund. And then we get into our multi-years. So scenario one is the multi-year with the budget as we've presented it. It's the 3.23 in 2021. 21-22 is a 3%, just over 3%, and then 22-23 is 4.5. This is what I probably consider our best case scenario. Scenario two shows a 1% in 2021, a 2%, and then a 3% in the two subsequent years. These are all assumptions. It could come property taxes. We will not know our actual property taxes until mid-October. So these are really estimates based on what we will or won't know on our property collections. We should maybe know something in July. And you see with a 1, 2, and 3% increase, and with reductions of an additional $757,000, it doesn't it gets us just to 4.38, 367, and 373. Scenario 3 shows a 2% each year in the 3 years, with the reduction again of the 757, and that shows a 5% all 3 years. Scenario 4 is like worst case, which shows we receive 0 property tax increase in the 2021 year. We would have to include additional reductions of $1 million in 2021 to get a 3% in that second year. And that would be, that this is our worst case scenario. And then we've added a scenario 5, which shows our original as proposed property tax projections at 3%, 4%, 4%, with our state aid reduction restored. That's as recommended by the legislature and the Senate, and with the 0.6 social studies at the high school restored. So you can see what that does. It just brings us back to a 3, and a 4, but it's still certifiable. What we don't know. We don't know if the cuts to basic aid will go beyond the 10% minimum guarantee. We also know that both the state and the Senate and the legislative budget proposals restore the cuts to education. And then, so the next steps are, they're negotiating with the governor right now, and they must have a budget approved by the 15th. And I hear it's quite a heated argument, quite a heated debate. So we don't know where it's going to end up. We don't know what our property tax collections will be, because they did defer all payments until July of 2020, and no penalty payments. We won't get our estimated property tax numbers until October of this year. So it takes it way out. We also don't know if the district will receive any additional CARES dollars from the state. That's the federal COVID relief money. And whether or not the governor will give any of his CARES dollars to the state. And then how quickly the economy can recover. Will phase 2 result in spikes? I think we are already seeing that in some counties. As the state and the country reopens, I think you're going to expect that. The question will be is, what's the response to that? And then what's education going to look like in August? It's still 2 months away, and it could really change in 2 months. What we do know, the state must adopt a budget by the 15th. Revenues won't be known till the fall. We know that for sure. Additional state cuts can occur in August or September, and even throughout the year. So regardless of whether a budget's adopted on the 15th, the state can still impose reductions. So we really need to be flexible, nimble, and responsive to information, and we watch information every day. And I'm tired. That's a lot of talking. So that's the budget.
Thank you, Maureen, very much. That is a lot of information and a lot of number crunching, and we appreciate it. Does anybody have a question for Maureen now?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember correctly. Diana, this was before you came, and Deanna, before you came as well. But when we approved the DLI pilot, and I'm still calling it a pilot, it was under the assumption and agreement that there would be no new staff needed to be hired, that teachers with B-clad would be moved around in order to meet the staffing needs of that program. So I'm not quite sure why we're seeing a request to bring in a new DLI teacher. So can someone speak to that?
I need to do the research, but my first response is, I do believe it's because of the increased enrollment and keeping the class sizes to 20. I'm not sure, but I really need to go back and look at the actual numbers at Polino.
But we don't have an overall enrollment in our elementary grades. We just have an increase in enrollment in our DLI program, correct?
We have 48 students every year.
Yeah. But when what Michelle's remembering is the way I remember it as well, in that the kind of the assurance was that as the program expanded, we wouldn't necessarily need to hire additional teachers, because any new teachers that were hired subsequent to the program being adopted would all be B-CLAD certified, so they would just move teachers around.
I'm trying to think. I think what has happened is I'm looking at the enrollment, and I think that was, I don't think it's necessarily DLI. I think it's the fact that we have 5 classrooms at 2nd grade. So I think it's the 5th classroom issue. But I need to go back and look at it. I can't respond without.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. Maybe speak to the.
Yes, I will respond to it after I research it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do remember asking Jamie Pursuit whether we had additional teaching instruction for DLI, and she said yes, because that's what we wanted to avoid. Keep hiring and hiring people from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the answer that we had. Yes, we do have enough people in our district just to move them around. That's how I recall it.
Yeah, so that's definitely, I have a pause on that hiring. So I just want to share that. And then a couple questions around the athletics stipends. So those were given to already existing teachers who would coach different teams, correct?
No, we have a lot of walk-ons also.
Okay, so is this an elimination of walk-on coaches, or?
It's not a determination of which coaches. That will be up to the site to determine, but there's a lot. Not all stipends go to teachers.
I'm just talking about the athletic stipends. Yeah. So with the elimination of those, would it be that walk-on coaches are the first to go, or would it be how are the sports going to be determined also?
Well, at the school site, the principal and the athletic director will have to look at 2 things: the level of participation in the particular sports and Title IX. So they have to make sure that they have equity with female and male sports. And then the amount of coaches assigned to each sport. So for example, one sport can have 8 coaches. Another sport can have 3, but you only have 10 kids participating. So they need to take a look at what sports they have available for males and females. What is the students? What's the number of students that have participated in the last few years? And how many coaches are they paying those required stipends that are in the contract? Mm-hmm. And then and as well as look at equipment and any other services that are in that line item and reduce it by $20,000.
Okay, because we're getting a lot of email response on the athletics, so I just want to make sure I'm really understanding it before.
So stipends include both walk-on and staff. They're all outside of staff contracts. They're all add-ons, and so that is not. That cut doesn't determine what. It's exactly what Diana said. They'll have to look at their program and decipher.
Okay.
For example, I'm just giving an example, and I don't know because I'm not at the site, but you have freshmen, JV, and varsity. So maybe you say for next year, we're not going to have freshmen and everybody's going to play JV. So we don't need 6 coaches. We only need 4 coaches or 5 coaches. That's a choice that the athletic director and the principal would need to take a look at. But they have to use their data that they have collected over the past 3 years about athlete participation, student participation, and also the equity has to be a factor.
I think it might be I know we're totally running out of time because it's June 9th, but because that is a hot topic, I think, right now in terms of the community as well. It might be nice to have a little presentation by Mr. Cornejo and maybe the athletic director about what their plan might be.
Great idea. Great idea. Yeah.
So that we can get some public comment and
Sure.
stuff. And then just my final comment is the reserve amount literally has butterflies in my stomach, and like I can't stand that it's 3% and that we still haven't even done negotiations yet. So I think we're gonna be forced to make even more cuts. I hate to say it, but I don't see another way around it.
So I just want to remind everybody, Michelle, and you make the great point, the whole purpose of reserves is because of situations that we're faced right now. And that is exactly what the state has said. The state has said, we are making drastic cuts to all the school districts throughout California. And our expectation is they're going to be using their reserves in addition to cutting. And so that's why we have a board policy that says you need to maintain close to 10%. It's times like this when you need your reserves.
I had one more thing that I wanted to add also, and that is in support to the point of Michelle about the DLI additional funding for additional staffing, excuse me, that we now hire and have for the last couple of years. Our new teachers are all either clad, B-clad, or they're under a requirement to complete their coursework around that and their testing for that within 3 years of their hire. So, you know, we're in HR, we're supporting that effort to be able to have that kind of flexibility so that principals in fact can utilize existing staff and not have to hire additional people. So, you know, it's a goal to have everyone have those skills as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Well, I would just add that I think, you know, Michelle's made some good points here, but I think that we need to have, you know, a worst case scenario where there's even greater cuts coming from the state. You know, maybe we don't necessarily have to adopt it, but we should at least be prepared for it. And I would like to, you know, hear about that DLI teacher, and you know, it's just this is always the worst time of year when we're cutting budgets, and it's even worse this year. But you know, I think you've done a pretty good job of keeping the cuts away from the classroom and away from the students. But when we've had so many years of cutting, you know, I can't think of a year since I've been on the board when we haven't had to cut something. And it, you know, you get down to a point where you can't be that much further away from the classroom because that's really the only things that are left. So I think at this point, we've done a pretty good job of you know, keeping that. But I would just like to reiterate that that's why we want to have those reserves higher. That's just, it's just, you know, we're just right on the razor's edge here. And if we have another unexpected expense come through, or revenues don't come through, or the county doesn't collect property taxes like they are anticipating, we're going to be looking at you know, cuts that really are felt by everyone, students in particular. So I think we all need to keep that in the back of our heads moving forward here.
I think you look at priority 4, Andy, where we have a 0 property tax increase. That reduction is in addition to what we proposed. So that's okay. Almost $2 million. Yeah. And you know that, and there's no way we're going to go beyond what you see with program. You see the ratio of our expenses, salary and benefits to operating budgets, it's very small. There's no more money to sweep if we're, going to be able to stay operating. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, so many of our departments are running very lean. I mean, I think there's still some areas that we can look at, but you look at grounds and maintenance and janitorial. I mean, they're food service. They're all just running very lean, and that's a testament to those employees. That they've figured out how to maintain a high level of service with a reduced staff and by being more efficient and wearing more hats. But I think we've done a pretty good job to this point, and now we're faced with these, we're faced with kind of this series of disasters, and that's why you have a little bit of savings in your checking account for time. But hopefully we'll be able to build that up, and hopefully property tax revenues will come in higher than we're projecting.
Any other questions, comments? I'll move on to D6. The board is required by state law to hold a public hearing on the proposed 2021, and I would like to open that public hearing. Any questions from those that are participating on any parts of the budget?
Yes, Monica, we have several participants that are going to make comments. And so, Monica, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay.
We're going to start in the order that I received the emails. So first is going to be Mr. Johnson. Is he still here? Mr. Jared Johnson?
He's muted there.
There he is.
There he is.
He's mute.
You're muted.
You're muted. Can you? I unmuted him.
Oh, no, muted again.
Can you unmute?
I'm unmuting and you're unmuting.
Yes.
And we're fighting each other with our mute buttons.
Thank you for being here tonight.
You're welcome, and thank you for all your time. I'm currently the president of the Carpinteria High School Sports Boosters Club Board of Directors, and the board has a letter that I think you've received that we'd like to have read and put into the public record. So if you would bear with me, I'd like to read this letter for us. The CHS Boosters Club Board of Directors are writing to support the district's effort to ensure the return of students to our campuses in August. This is a challenging undertaking in a difficult budget environment. Obviously, that's what you've been talking about. And we greatly appreciate the commitment of our board and district staff to the education and well-being of our students. As the district develops plans for returning to school in August, we urge you to include meaningful athletics and physical education activities in those plans, as well as the budget. We know that physical activity and athletics are critical to the social, physical, and emotional well-being of high school students. Athletics also instill values central to the district's educational mission, such as grit, teamwork, and leadership. After months away from organized sports and physical education, we believe athletics and physical activity will be more critical than ever when our students return to the high school in August. We acknowledge, however, that the COVID-19 pandemic may require changes to the athletics and physical education programs based on careful risk assessments, the latest guidelines from relevant organizations and health authorities, and voluntary participation levels. Nonetheless, we are confident that a wide array of activities could be safely offered this fall, consistent with CDC guidelines, ranging from outdoor group exercise at distance to full practices and competitions in some or perhaps all sports. The CIF shares this view, although CIF acknowledges that there may be scheduling and other changes for various sports. It is planning to offer a meaningful high school athletic program for those districts and schools that choose to participate during the next school year. We believe our district should participate in CIF athletics in the upcoming school year and continue to promote physical education for those who do not participate in organized sports. Data from around the world have consistently demonstrated that children are the lowest risk demographic for transmitting and contracting the virus. This is confirmed by the fact that schools in Europe have safely reopened. We also know that a wide array of outdoor activities pose little or no risk of virus transmission. This is confirmed by CDC guidance and the fact that our own county's public health order has permitted outdoor tennis and golf with some hygiene measures and other forms of outdoor recreation for weeks with no impact on COVID-19 hospitalization levels. For these and other reasons, some school districts in California are slowly resuming organized sports, and the Pac-12 collegiate is allowing athletics to resume on campus, athletes to resume on-campus workouts on June 15th. We urge the district, working with the principal and the athletic director at the high school, to develop flexible plans for a variety of athletic and physical education activities beginning in August and continuing through the school year. For similar reasons,
it's been 3 minutes. Is it much longer? Every person
no,
has 3 minutes.
we're on the last page, if you could bear with me. For similar reasons, we urge you to reopen the athletic facilities at the high school this summer. These facilities, especially the track, are community resources. Today, our tennis courts are open and we support that decision, but we note that the county public health order expressly authorizes and encourages other forms of outdoor recreation. This is for the benefit of the entire community, and we believe our outdoor athletic facilities should be open at the high school. Lastly, we recognize that the district faces budget challenges in the upcoming school year, but it is critical we provide funding for our athletic programs for the entire school year. We believe the budget should fund a range of athletic activities for the entire school year on whatever schedule is adopted by CIF. Although it may be difficult to spare any part of the budget from cuts, we do not believe that team sports or physical education should bear a disproportionate share of any funding cuts. We, along with the athletic director, have identified several scenarios and alternative budget options that we believe can avoid significant cuts to vital programs our students need for their physical and mental well-being. We would like to encourage and engage in further discussion with board and district staff about how we can adequately fund the careful resumption of athletics and physical education at the high school and promote the well-being of our students. It is essential that we continue to offer the quality athletic programs that have been part of the educational experience of our children as well as our community for decades. Sincerely, the Carpenter High School Sports Boosters Board of Directors, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared. And I would like to encourage the rest of the speakers to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Monica?
Yes, next we have Mr. Kurt Souza. And I'll start the minutes as soon as he starts speaking. He's muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Board members and Mrs. Rigby, thank you for the time. My wife, Stephanie, and I are addressing the board today due to our concern sports and PE may be reduced or eliminated at CHS next year. As parents, we have been involved in carpentry schools for the past 18 years. We have been active members on parent support groups as well as CHS boosters. While we recognize COVID-19 may require some modifications to sports and physical activities, we believe the benefits outweigh the potential challenges. We would also like to note in Santa Barbara County, local baseball and basketball teams have already started to practice with proper modifications. Games are scheduled to resume in July. We have always emphasized the importance of academics with our children. However, we recognize sports and physical activities are extremely beneficial. Our oldest daughter, Marissa, was a 3-sport athlete. Our second daughter, Hannah, participated in choir and muses. And our son, Miles, is a current 2-sport athlete. All 3 of our children learned to become leaders on and off the field and stage. They made friendships with students they probably would have never met if it weren't for sports and the arts. Numerous studies have shown the positive effects sports and PE have for students physically, mentally, and socially. Studies show teens are spending 7 hours a day on screens, not including school time. Additional PE and athletics might be the easiest of all in terms of ensuring that healthy measures are in place. Reducing the number of PE units offered on campus and moving kids to independent PE is a bad idea. The CHS population needs the opportunity to build strength and conditioning, not only for athletes, but for general fitness for life with a PE teacher. We would like the board to move forward with allowing sports and physical education to continue next year. We also strongly believe all fields at the high school should be accessible for the community. The track was partially funded by Carpenter residents for public use and should be opened immediately, similar to high school tennis courts that have been open for the past couple of weeks. I found out yesterday from my son that the track gate was open. Lastly, we do not believe sports and PE should be disproportionately shoulder budget reductions. Independent PE is not the answer. Elimination of PE activities and a $42,000 reduction in sports in the last 2 years is not acceptable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kurt. Monica?
Yes, next we have Christy Cooney.
And I believe Nikki
I'm
wanted
sorry?
to cede her time to Christy.
Okay, that means then Christy has 6 minutes then. So
should make
Nikki,
it.
am I okay ceding the time to you?
Thank you. Okay, good evening. I am the parent of 3 CUSD students, and I would like to address the proposed budget cuts tonight and ask that the board request the district staff and leadership team to go back to the drawing board. Having reviewed this budget proposal, as well as the greater budget detail, I believe we need to dig deeper into the budget to propose cuts further away from students and to involve the many smart, educated people employed at our school sites who are not involved in the making of the current budget proposal. I would also encourage you to bring in parents and community members to provide fresh eyes and creative solutions that have been overlooked. This budget proposal takes an easy, superficial approach at cutting to meet a bottom line number instead of an in-depth study of what truly is needed, where efficiencies can be gained, and what will least likely impact our children and the programs they engage with on a daily basis. The proposed cuts will directly impact our children in the classroom and in the extracurricular activities that are needed for their physical, emotional, and mental well-being. And the ramifications of these cuts that aren't shown in the proposal will also directly impact our kids. At the middle school, what is shown in the budget proposal is the elimination of a science teacher position due to retirement. What you don't see is that by not filling that position, another teacher will be moved to cover some of those sections, eliminating the on your own or OYO class. This class teaches basic life skills like cooking and sewing that are rewarding and beneficial to our students. This is a class that most students look forward to taking at some point during their CMS career. It adds value and a sense of accomplishment as well as fun. Our kids need this class and we need to find a way to keep it. At the high school, the proposal is to reduce the athletics budget by $22,400, a budget that already had $20,000 cut from it this school year and saw a reduction in the number of competitions for each team. That's $42,000 in cuts, 10% of the budget in just 2 years. 10% of the budget to education-based athletics that 550 students participate in. 550 participants in programs that provide physical exercise, which the CDC is recommending for the physical and mental well-being of our children. Also at the high school, the proposal is to not replace the retiring history teacher, which will be the second social science department position to be eliminated in 2 years. That's a 33% reduction to the CHS social science department in 2 years. 1/3 of the social science department gone. What you don't see is that history classes, which already have an average of 34 students in US history and 29 students in modern world, will likely have increased class sizes. That a teacher was hired to fill an open position in another subject area, which has class size averages of 16 and 20. That there are AP classes with 6 and 11 students, yet there are history classes with 35 and 36 students. You don't see that PE sections are being reduced to shift teachers to cover other sections of other subjects, and that some physical education electives will be eliminated. We know our kids need physical activity now more than ever, and our world certainly is in a place today where we should be focusing on history and the lessons that come with it. Eliminating PE sections, reducing athletic budgets, and eliminating history teachers seems to be the wrong direction to take. At the last board meeting, it was reported that Vice President Bray commented that not rehiring the 3 employees who are retiring is a no-brainer. I'm sure that was meant with all good intentions, but right now we need to go with the brainer decisions. Let's use our brains and the brains of the great department chairs we employ and others within our district and community to go through the budget with a fine-tooth comb, reevaluate the master schedule at CHS and CMS, and look for creative solutions to the budget problem. These people have great ideas and alternative budget solutions, and they're not being involved in the decision-making process. If we learned anything from the pandemic, it is that we can find new ways of doing things. Let's dig deeper and figure out new ways of looking at our budget and programs together. We can work together, rise above, and do what's right for our children. Or we can continue down a dark path of cuts and contention. Let's dig deep, rise above, and shine as a team for the benefit of our kids. Having taken a brief look at the detailed budget, here are just a few of the ideas I have, which I would like you to consider and explore further. There's $290,000 in extra duty services in the operating budget. Let's take a look at how much of that extra duty is truly needed, especially in a COVID hybrid learning environment. $290,000 could be at least 2 teaching positions. There is $49,000 in travel and conferences in the budget. Does travel to conferences really need to take place in this new environment? I think we've all learned how to attend meetings virtually and how many kids are going to these conferences. If we cut that number in half, that more than covers the proposed cuts to athletics. Perhaps the teachers union would be willing to go back to the old ways of negotiating when it was done after school and during the summer. How much money would we save in sub fees annually, and how much additional time would our students get with their teachers rather than subs if this were done? Would that be enough to avoid cuts to athletics or bring a part-time teacher to reinstate the On Your Own program? Let's think differently. Let's look at the budget with fresh eyes, and let's work as a team. And let's avoid cuts to programs our kids are currently engaged in, thriving in, and using to benefit their physical and mental well-being. Not to mention activities that literally level the playing field and help to close the achievement gap. The state has issued their guidelines on reopening schools, and in their roadmap they state, as schools begin to plan for reopening, they must actively and authentically engage parents and caregivers, families and students in the decision-making process in order to build trust and credibility for any plans that are implemented. Let's take this approach with the budget. I'm concluding. Let's evaluate what will truly be needed in our new way of learning and living and determine what can be cut at a deeper level and away from our kids. And let's do it together under the guidelines of frequent and transparent communication that involves stakeholders in the decision-making process and builds trust and credibility. I would love to volunteer to review these ideas and others with a team approach to presenting budget solutions that don't directly impact our kids. I leave you with 3 takeaways. Dig deeper and away from our kids. Engage as a team to solve the problem, and build trust and credibility. Thank you for your consideration and support of our children.
Thanks, Christy. Monica?
That's it.
Okay. There are no other comments from those that are on with us?
Those are the only people that send a request.
Okay. Then I would like to close the public hearing. And we'll move on to D7, which is public comment on items that are not on the agenda. Each person has 3 minutes, and please let's have no personal attacks. So let's try to stick with the 3 minutes. And I would like to remind the board that we actually can't respond during this time. Any comments? Okay, I'm moving on to G, business and operations. G1 is our warrants. Can I have a motion to approve the warrants?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Are there questions about the warrants? All those in favor of approving the warrants?
Aye.
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 And G2 is a resolution, number 2869, the resolution authorizing designated staff to sign contract documents with the California Department of Education. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Questions? Jimmy, this is a roll call.
Rogelio,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
and I am I.
Thank you. G3 is an agreement between Carpinteria Unified School District and Michael Viatoni, Civil Engineering. I have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to H, Measure U. H1 is the employment agreement for Measure U facilities, the project coordinator. May I have a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And H2, the approval of contracted services with FCG Environmental for modernization of the administration building at Carpinteria High School.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And moving on to I, the personnel summary, and I would like a motion to approve the personnel summary.
Wait,
we have H2,
yeah, we gotta do
H3.
H3.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it's the same.
Same company.
Yeah. H3 is the approval of contracted services with FCG Environmental for modernizations of buildings B and F at the high school.
Move to approve.
Second. Sally freeze or just me?
This is just
I
a
think it
regular vote.
froze.
Oh, she froze.
Everybody move to approve?
Oh,
Okay.
she's back.
Yep, sorry. Moving on to personnel. I1, the personnel summary. May I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody vote?
Yes.
Okay. I2 is the initial proposal from the Carpinteria Unified School District to the Carpinteria Association of United School Employees cause certificated. May I have a motion to approve this initial proposal?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
I do have a question. So,
oh, sorry, Michelle.
In Article 6, the compensation and benefits, does that include the health and wellness package since it's
Yes.
the entire article?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I3 is the initial proposal from the Carpinteria Unified School District to the Carpinteria Association of United School Employees classified. May I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Anybody have any announcements to make?
I want to say welcome to Kim Ortega. I am so thrilled.
Yes.
I know her from Santa Barbara Unified, and she is going to be fabulous. And she lives in Carpinteria, across the street from me, so I can wave at her. Yeah, she's really great.
Yes, welcome, Kim. Anybody else?
Yes.
Rogelio?
First of all, it's been like a week and a half or so that we got 25 letters and no one responded. So this, I mean, it's not the time to keep silent. It's a way to speak up, because we're getting input from the community every day, every day, every day. And this is what I noticed. Silence, silence. And believe me, I was elected by the community to represent this very community. So that is why I felt disappointed that no one actually responded. And silence is not for me. It is not. So I was proud to be at the Black Lives Matter, because this is the time to make a change. If this, believe me, if this does not make a change, nothing will, nothing. But believe me, this will not go away. And because it was organized by high school students and young people. And that is why we need to come up with solutions, productive solutions, to resolve this problem. Not words, but actions. And it won't happen overnight, but down the road, I hope that we actually work together in all of this. And secondly, sports. Yes, we all.
Is this an announcement? Are we
No,
giving
no, it's not an announcement. It's just because it was brought up by the community. And I think that I'm sure that you play sports. All of us play sports. I play sports. And if all of a sudden.
Well, we had the chance to talk about sports a little while ago. I mean, this is just board announcements.
Yeah.
No,
and I
it's
think
not.
This will be agendized for
No,
later.
we are going back to the same problem again. You see, this is exactly the very same problem that we were all talking about. Okay. Respect.
What is that? What are you talking about?
Respect. You're all interrupting me.
Well, it's because
that is why you're doing it too.
Yeah, the agenda item though is announcements. It's not board communications.
No. That is why I'm saying that current activities, it's a school issue, isn't it?
But this is something we can agendize for later, Rogelio. At the moment, we're just.
So that's what I'm saying is that we should think about all of this before acting. Thank you.
I believe everybody is doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? And I would like to adjourn the meeting and thank you all.
No, hold on, Sally. We've got board calendar.
So yes, so I just like
also
to remind...
agenda items.
I'm sorry?
Also agenda items.
Yes.
There's something I want to bring back.
Let's start with the board calendar first, and that's Monica. Go ahead,
Yes,
Monica.
I'd like to remind the board members that we are going to have a special board meeting. It's closed session only on June 16 at 5:30. So please schedule it on your agendas. So it's closed session only June 16 is a special board meeting. 5
And it's Zoom. And
And
it's
it's Zoom.
on
It will
Zoom.
be Zoom. Yeah.
Yes. And then for future agenda items, we have the budget adoption. We have racial and social justice in the schools. And Michelle, you wanted to add something else?
Yeah, to kind of go along with that, will you just bring back the board policy and admin regulation that we have around diversity, inclusion, just so we can have that part of our kind of discussion?
Yes. We have a board policy on discrimination, harassment, and on hate bias in schools. So we have several board policies that we will bring. Yes.
And then also Mr. Cornejo and the athletic director to bring us that kind of a plan. Yeah.
Yeah, he will be there.
Great.
And thank you, Diana and Maureen, for bringing Michelle on and following up with our conversation at the last board meeting. I really appreciate it. It was excellent.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Anything else? Thank you all for attending. Greatly appreciate it. And we will gather again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.